the intention here is to try to determine what business can do to affect social change. So we've talked about what sport can do. What can business do? What should companies be doing? So David obviously advises his clients on this, and he's recently written a book, Who Cares Wins. And David, the thesis of that book is that if businesses don't do good, they will fail.
Every week we are seeing a new example that if you do not behave in the right way, people have now been empowered through digital and social media to sanction you. And what it means is that, for me, the new price of doing well is doing good. And that if you don't actually set out to do good, you won't be able to succeed. So it's not about the old world of making a ton of money and then saying, oh, by the way, we've done quite well, we should be giving something back. It is what you need to do. Social media has taken CSR out of the silo and put it in the P&L statement. And if you don't do the right thing, you won't be able to succeed. You've got 86% of people in the world saying they want business to stand for more than just profit. What's the purpose beyond the profit? And I think we're at the start of a movement, but what we will see is that those companies that do the best in the future are those that outbehave their competition, and those that behave in the wrong way will pay the price.
And previously you had examples, didn't you, where companies paid lip service to it or tried to make themselves appear to be more active socially than they actually were. That, you say, they're not going to get away with anymore.
No, I mean, I think we've sort of lived through 3 eras of social responsibility in business, and the first one is what I'd call the sort of age of image, where it was, we'll pretend we're doing this, but in reality it's business as usual. And I probably shouldn't name Olympic sponsors, but I will. I think BP is a typical example of that. The oil business is a very tough business. If we didn't have oil tomorrow, we'd have massive problems. But if you're in that business, you don't change your logo to a little flower and sort of set out to pretend you press wild daisies for a living and sitting at the top of all the sustainability rankings, when clearly you can't be if you're in that business. I think we then move into what I call the age of advantage, where we saw businesses be genuine about this and say, actually, this is genuine competitive advantage. So, Marks and Spencer's with their Plan A. I think Unilever are another business that at scale have really been doing a great job in this. And up until recently, I would have argued Walmart were another one. And then I think, talked about the age of damage. We're now in a space where if you don't do this, you will get taken down. And you take a company like, Walmart, sadly, all the great stuff they've done in the last 10 years, and they've probably done more than any business to change the world's supply chain, it disappears with one scandal in Mexico.
So you're not just saying that they should do this. You're saying that actually it will make them more money if they do this. In other words, if they bring corporate social responsibility out of the silo and into their core business strategy, that it's going to make them more money. Can you give us some examples of that? Because I think a lot of people find it hard to believe that this isn't something that just costs business money, a cost of doing business.
I mean, one of the ideas in the book is the social business idea. And if you draw one circle which is doing good and one which is making money, the social business idea sits at the intersection. I think the first point is, if you look at victims of the age of damage, the billions and billions that has cost them in value because they're behaving in the wrong way, I think that's the negative cost of it. From a positive perspective, though, if you look at a company like Patagonia, they did this brilliant campaign which said, don't buy this jacket. And they did a deal with eBay, created a channel to resell secondhand Patagonia clothing. Now, on one level, you go, hang on, they're actually saying, don't buy our stuff. That can't be good for business. Patagonia's sales have gone up 30% the last 2 years. Take a company like Domino's Pizza, who were a big victim of people posting videos of them doing nasty things to pizza on YouTube, their employees. They learned from that. They came out with what's called the transparency campaign. They stopped retouching their photography of the pizzas. They started allowing people to post real-time comments on their billboards. They shared research where people said they thought their pizzas tasted horrible. Again, when it first came out, people were like, what are they doing? 233% share price increase since they launched the campaign. And I think there's more and more examples of that, and we will see more and more examples of that. So if you behave in the wrong way, you will fail, but if you behave in the right way, you'll get rewarded. There's a brilliant generation of young people around the world who are the most knowledgeable because of digital technology. They're the most responsible because they know so much more about what's going on in the world. And they're the most powerful because they understand more about digital and social media than anyone. Mark Zuckerberg, 28, and he's changing the world himself. And they will not do business with companies that behave in the wrong way. And I think you're seeing, you see a bank like the Co-op in the UK who is talking about ethical investing and the sort of things they'll invest in. The other side of things, you see a bank coming out with it's time for greener banking, and well, yes, it is, but you're not doing it, so don't say that. So I think over time, and as I said, we're at the start of something. It's not going to transform in 1 or 2 months, but you will see that the most successful companies, businesses, and leaders in the future are those who behave in the right way.
We're talking a lot about big multinational companies, but obviously, small businesses need to have this element as well to their strategy, corporate social responsibility. What do you say to them, to people that don't have money to invest initially in it or put aside for this? What should they do?
I mean, I think that the point for me is it's not an add-on activity. Actually, absolutely has to be at the core of what you're all about. And so, it's actually easier for small business, because if you're a massive global company, and I've got a lot of respect for what Unilever are doing, but when you're a multi-billion-dollar company, it's much harder to change than when you're setting out. So if you look at the Patagonias, the Chipotles, the Burt's Bees, it's much easier for them to behave in the right way because they haven't got these massive legacy businesses, and it's much harder for the big business. But the big businesses can have so much more impact. I mean, if you're selling products to 4 billion people a day, if you make those products better, more sustainable, actually do good, the impact you can have on the world is amazing. And I think at a simplistic level, if the last century was about NGOs and charities having great intentions and poor execution, but business actually had great execution and poor intentions, what we need is this century to be about great execution and great intentions. And I think that is the exciting role for business. I think it's also the exciting role for sport. We're here pre-Olympics. I think the Olympic movement is still operating in the sort of old world of let's make a ton of money here and do some good stuff on the side, rather than saying, if we set about putting social responsibility at the heart and core of the entire Olympic movement, what could we do?
So let's try and explore more the role of business here. I mean, obviously these big companies pay a ton of money to be official Olympic sponsors. Are you saying that they should be doing more than putting giant banners up? That they should, what are they doing? Are they going into the communities and then sort of leaving when the Olympics are over?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's obviously a massive impact that happens in the host city. And I lived in Sydney through 2000 Olympics, and it fundamentally changed Sydney. But I think what you've got today with a lot of sponsors, not all of them, is they're missing the point. You take a company like Visa. I don't actually think that Visa is perceived more positively today than it was pre the Olympics, because everyone's finding it very painful and hard to pay for things. People, the new rules of the world are openness and collaboration. And everything that is locked down and controlled, that doesn't fly in today's world. And I think we're seeing that, and we'll see, if you look at what's going to happen through social media. I mean, the last Olympics, there were 6 million people on Twitter, 100 million on Facebook. There's now 140 million on Twitter and nearly 1 billion on Facebook. How you control the power of social media, where you used to be able, you can lock down TV, you can lock down posters, you can lock down everything, but you can't control social media. So it's going to be very interesting to watch how that all plays out.
Yeah, watch out for criticism, I suppose. But so what you're saying perhaps is maybe the Olympics should be more inclusive when it comes to other businesses as well. I mean, you get a lot of local businesses that feel completely cut off, even though this should be an opportunity for them to market themselves in London.
Yeah, people do not like big global. I mean, look, business has not behaved that brilliantly in the last couple of decades. So people are cynical of business. And when you see big business actually damaging smaller businesses, people don't like that. And I think we will see this open up. But a lot of the activity that's happening isn't actually going to benefit the brands who think that all this money they're paying on sponsorship is a good thing. We are living in this world of radical transparency. Anything you say and do
nowhere to hide
will be shared around the world. You have nowhere to hide. We used to say, imagine every decision you make that it would be on the front page of a newspaper tomorrow morning. Well, it is now. It is live, and there's 100 million people who are watching and seeing these things if you behave in the wrong way.
Let's end on sports. Let's say that I'm a community organization, a government organization, sporting organization of some sort, and I want to get the involvement of private business. How do I go and sell my idea and get them on board?
In terms of you want money funding?
Yeah.
I mean, I think, look, one of the biggest problems today for the NGO sector, I had a conversation this morning with a fantastic guy, Mark Kielberger, who founded We Day, is, everyone's chasing money, and there's a finite supply of money. If you want some, I think what you need to do is actually connect what it is that you're doing to what's important to that business. So if you sort of draw one circle of, what's a genuine and credible role for my brand or business, and what is it that, consumers and people actually care about, the overlap of those two things is where you want to look. But I also think, and I think in the world of sport, we're seeing examples of going in the opposite direction. So if you look at Barcelona, they used to have the UNICEF logo for free on the front of their shirts, football shirts, and now it's Qatar and a $126 million deal. That's not necessarily a good thing for the world of sport, and it goes against how you get business involved and actually supporting and doing good. And I think that's the opportunity, and I think it needs to happen.
And I suppose if you're a community and you're pitching to a large company, those companies now have to think globally and locally. They have to do both.
Yeah, I think the really good thing that's genuinely happening in the world today is I think the CEOs and leaders of the majority of companies really do understand that people want business to be more socially responsible, and they have to be genuine about it. And they really have to do it. So what you're finding is that companies are sitting down and going, okay, well, where do we act and what do we do? And they have the things that they're interested in. It may be Africa, it may be young people, it may be sustainability, it may be climate. And I think what you need to do if you want involvement, sponsorship, funding, money from those companies is work out, and this is what we do with One Young World. If we just send a thing out saying, hey, please get involved and sponsor One Young World, we tend to get a no. If we sit down and go, we've actually seen that Africa is very important to you, we've got a whole plenary session around health, and particularly in Africa and HIV, and that seems to sit very closely with what you're passionate about. They go, oh, okay, right, I get it now, that's interesting, let's have a conversation. So making it relevant to the organization.
David Jones, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Linzie.
Thank you.